Welcome to the Michelle Rempel Garner podcast.
Hello, fellow patriots. Well, many of you often ask, what are we going to do about something? And by we, I mean the Conservative Party. One of the big issues that I hear about often is immigration reform. And of course, as the Shadow Minister for Immigration, it's up to me to come up with that something. And this week, we rolled out what I think is the most comprehensive package of immigration reform in recent Canadian history. Joining me to discuss this is my Chief of Staff and veteran political strategist, Sean Schnell. Welcome back after a bit of a hiatus.
Yeah, and there's been a lot going on here. I think it was maybe a month or two ago when we were talking about immigration, some of the policy that you're rolling out, and we were getting lots of questions saying, okay, well, but there's other reforms that are needed. And at that time, you told the listeners to stay tuned.
Stay tuned. So
So here
that
we
that time
are.
has come. Yes. So just to recap, we have rolled out a lot of policy reforms already. So we started off the fall session by announcing that the Conservative Party would abolish the temporary foreign worker program. Then we went on to talk about how the Conservative Party would stop automatic citizenship for the descendants of two temporary residents in Canada and require that in order to get automatic citizenship, somebody born in Canada would have to have at least one of their parents be permanent residents. We've also tabled my bill, which is going to be up for debate this week, regarding removing the ability of judges to consider leniency in sentencing for non-citizens convicted of serious crime by virtue of their immigration status. But this week, we put a whole buffet of new policies out with regard to two areas: the asylum system, which is severely broken, as well as the criminal justice system as it pertains to leniency for non-citizens. So where should we start? Do you want to go to the UK? Let's start with
Sure.
the context of what happened in the UK, and feel free to jump in. So let's put a screenshot up. Do we have a headline? Yes, here we go. Okay. So this is part of the statement I issued this week. So for those of you who have been watching, the United Kingdom this week announced a series of really sweeping asylum system reforms. And it was the Labour Party that did this. It was the left of center party that
Right.
had to
Yeah.
do this. And that's because the United Kingdom immigration is, I think it's the top issue now, Sean,
Yeah.
it's a top voter issue. And most of their issues with immigration came with regard to illegal migration. So people that illegally entered the country and then subsequently claimed asylum and then started claiming very generous social benefits. And many of these claims are bogus asylum claims, right? I want to show listeners something. So between January 2022 and 2025, Canada received nearly 500,000 asylum claims, which is the equivalent of 1.2% of our population. And that number is actually more than double the percentage of population of asylum claims than the UK received. And it's actually substantively greater than the absolute number of claims. So, just to put what I'm about to talk about, the reforms that we're rolling out, I'm going to list all of them. To put it into context, Canada's asylum system is being more abused than the UK, where the UK that is entirely seized by this debate. Just even the backlog alone, there's over 300,000 pending claims in the system today, and that number was 10,000 a decade ago. So you can see how broken the asylum system is. It's really become a backdoor way for economic migrants to illegally enter the country, claim asylum, and then take advantage of a system that's it's supposed to be compassionate. It's supposed to be um, designed to help legitimate refugees, right? So we
Sure.
can pull
Yeah.
that down. We can pull that down. So that's the context. So should we do the drum roll on what we're proposing?
Yeah, I think the context is important just so that people have a grasp on just
How
the
bad it is.
size of the issue that we're talking about here.
Yeah, and just before you throw this up, I think that it's important for people to understand that in Canada, there used to be a consensus for immigration, right? Like 10 years
Mhm.
ago, we wouldn't be having this conversation. And it was because there was a sort of a cross-partisan understanding that you can't bring in so many people in a short period of time that housing, healthcare, and jobs can't keep up, right? And so we've seen this precipitous drop in public opinion support for immigration across the political spectrum. And I think it's important to not point the finger at immigrants. And I don't think Canadians are right now, but it is right to point the finger at the Liberal government because they broke the system. You remember?
Yeah.
Hashtag welcome to Canada. They, basically literally rolled out the red carpet for people illegally crossing the border from the United States into Canada, having already reached a safe third country, then claiming asylum, then able to claim generous social benefits for years without having their claims heard. Same thing in 2016, the Liberals lifted the visa imposition on or visa requirement for Mexico with no plan to stop bogus asylum claims, and here we are. So I think
Mhm.
it's really important that, again, people are clamoring for change, and we need to have change before this debate gets ugly, like it has in the UK. So, what are Conservatives going to do about it? Our entire Team MRG, has been working really hard. I want to give a very big shout out to Miguel in our Ottawa office, as well as Andrew. Those two guys have just been literally working 90-hour weeks to get here, but here we are. So let's put up what we're proposing, and these are concrete proposals. Okay, so we are going to propose to amend Liberal Bill C-12. This is the Liberals' quote, border security bill. It has some immigration provisions in it, but it doesn't address some of the key draws or incentives for people to abuse the asylums. And it doesn't address the fact that we now have a two-tier justice system in effect for sentencing non-citizens convicted of serious crimes. So we are going to propose this week a series of substantive amendments to Bill C-12 that the Liberals and the Bloc will have to vote on. And I'm hoping that if there's any common sense, they will support these. They were designed to be bipartisan. They were designed to restore sanity and compassion to the immigration system. So let's go through them. You can put up the
Yeah,
next.
let's put these up here.
Okay. So here's the list, folks. This is what we're going to do next week. We're going to propose to end federal benefits beyond emergency health care for failed asylum claimants. So what that means is that if somebody makes an asylum claim in Canada and in Canada's generous system, they're found to not have a valid claim, that they're not eligible to keep claiming federal benefits, right? We know that the interim federal health program has increased in cost by over 1,200%. It's now over $1 billion a year. So that has to stop. That is a draw to abuse the system. So that is one of the things we'll be proposing. Second thing, we're going to bar asylum claims from nationals of or those who arrived in Canada having transited through a G7 or a European Union country. So what that means is we're going back to the principles established in the Geneva Convention, that if you are going to claim asylum somewhere, you need to claim asylum in the first safe third country that you reach. We have an agreement with the United States in this regard. We have to make sure that other safe countries like the G7 and EU, that people are not claiming asylum either as nationals of or having transited through those countries. If they want to claim asylum, they need to claim asylum there, not in Canada. The next one is deeming asylum claims abandoned if claimants return home during processing. We actually see this happen. Asylum
Yeah.
claimants will come to Canada. Do you want to comment on this? Because I think a lot of people think this is already happening.
Yeah, well, I was just going to say this is something that we see a lot, and I know members of parliament across the country see casework that comes into their office that talk about these sorts of situations where people are returning back home during the processing of applications, and it raises questions
Yeah,
about the validity of asylum
of
claims
course.
when you're saying I'm fleeing from either persecution or violence
Why would you
or
go back
things of this
home?
nature, but then you've gone back. This is a relatively common sense thing, I think, when most people look at it on its surface, but yet this is something that is has been plaguing the system.
So think about this for a second. Somebody comes to Canada and says, I need asylum. I can't go back home because of X reason. And then they go back home.
Yeah.
Um, I'm sorry. Like, and I know that you'll have, far left advocates try to spin that somehow. I like, no, that is, if this principle is not in place, like it just can, if somebody wants to migrate to the country for economic reasons, then they should do that legally through Canada's economic migration streams. The asylum system was designed to give persecution from people who cannot go back home. Like I think about the Yazidis that survived sexual slavery, whose homeland was taken over by ISIS, right? Um,
Yeah, and it's
so
important to contextualize it too, that this is not the only way that people can come to Canada. Like you're saying, there are
correct,
many legal streams
correct.
and different options that meet a variety of situations that are appropriate for people to explore based on their circumstances. But this system, the asylum system, was not meant to be a catch-all.
So then the next amendment that we're going to propose is that we should reject asylum claims after it's been found that a claimant has flat out lied to an officer about their
Right.
circumstances. We see this all the time. And then there's appeals processes related to this. No, if somebody lies to an officer, it gives purposefully misleading information, then their claim should be abandoned.
Mhm.
Period. Here's the other thing. So this is another amendment. Right now, somebody could come to Canada and make an asylum claim years after entering Canada, in theory, right? A claimant should make an asylum claim as soon as possible when they enter the country, right? Otherwise, it opens the system up for fraud, right? And I'm just going to say it bluntly, the Liberals have 3 million plus temporary residents in Canada whose visas are about to expire. They need to go back once their visas expire because they will then no longer have a legal reason to be in Canada.
That's
But
the
what
definition of temporary, right?
correct, that is the definition of temporary. But what some of these people are being counseled to do is to make asylum claims so that they can stay in the country. So, to disincentivize people from doing that, we want to do two things. We want to, first of all, make sure that their claims are made in a timely manner and that the onus is on the claimant, not the government, to prove that somebody made their claim in a timely manner. That is a no brainer to me. So, Sean, there are circumstances where, like, let's say somebody has come to Canada on a temporary visa, on a student visa or something, and then their country descends into kinetic war. Or then let's say that their country goes through a military coup, and let's say they're part of the a sexual minority community, and it's all of a sudden, punishable by murder to be gay. Okay, well, the circumstances have changed in your country. You can make an asylum claim, right? But then you
Mhm.
have to prove that that's what happened. In the circumstances like this, where somebody could need legitimate protection, it should be easy to make that proof, right? But when it's a system of abuse, it should be easy for the government to say, no, this is somebody that's trying to extend their stay in Canada by abusing the asylum system. So we're going to amend the law to make it easier to make that case. Um, we're going to require educational institutions who accept foreign students to share the cost of any bogus asylum claims made by foreign students that they welcome to Canada. So there are a lot of, seen diploma mills. Frankly, some colleges, particularly in Ontario, we've had them in front of our committee. They profited off of giving student visas to people who, frankly, I think that like I feel bad for the students who came to Canada thinking that they would be able to stay. I do.
Yeah.
I think they were sold a bill of goods by the Liberals. But now the problem is you have people who are on expiring visas who need to leave and the Liberals have no plan to remove them, and they're planning to claim, some of them are planning to claim asylum. So in that case where educational institutions did not do, and going forward, educational institutions should have some responsibility in ensuring that they are not en masse issuing permits knowing that there's a high likelihood that a bogus asylum claim is going to be made at the end of the day, right? And there
Yep.
are ways to do this. This is a practice that is common around the world. So we have some very clever, I think, amendments to do that. And it should be after all the abuse we've seen by educational institutions, they need to share some of the responsibilities here. Like the fact that some of these college presidents that did this they got off scot-free, that can't happen in the future. So we are going to amend the system to deal with that. Here's another one I think people will be shocked to find out. If somebody comes to Canada, they don't have to on the record immediately. Like if they're going to make an asylum claim quickly, they don't have to state their reasons on the record right away. And what we've seen from that is that then people who want to make false asylum claims can go to unscrupulous lawyers or immigration consultants. There was a case of a lawyer that was found to have basically cut and pasted the same rationale for over 200 asylum claimants. So we want to make sure that people are stating their reasons on the record immediately so that it's harder to game the system down the road. And again, that should disincentivize people from making bogus asylum claims. We're going to modernize the appeal system. We are going to change the reporting requirements in this system as well, because it's hard to get immigration information,
Right.
even as a member of parliament. And then we're also going to deal with something called the Immigration Refugee Board. We're going to try and modernize, excuse me, we're going to try and modernize that board to make it less politically driven and more based on merit and on experience like law enforcement. Okay. This next one, do you want to talk about the next tranche, like just in terms of its importance? Because it's something you and I have talked about here. This is strengthening border security and the deportation of non-citizens who've been convicted of serious crime. I know this is one that's near and dear to your heart.
Yeah, and this is something that you've been talking about for a while. You've referenced earlier that you've got a private member's bill that's before Parliament that talks about this issue as well. But yeah, so it's what Canadians are continually seeing is stories after stories in the media where there are non citizens that are committing very serious offenses, like you said, sexual assault, cases of violence, who are being allowed to continue their application, and that who are having their application status considered as a part of the judicial process. And it's infuriating to Canadians because they see two streams of justice as opposed to one set of rules for everybody. And the thought there is that if you are coming to Canada, that you are following the laws just
Which
like
most
everybody
people
else,
do.
and that you are following the rules. And exactly right. This is something that most people do, but for those that aren't, it's a concern for Canadians.
So I want to emphasize, most people who come to Canada, who immigrate to Canada, they play by the rules. And I think it's important to start at that premise. But then there are people who don't. There are people who come to Canada and are convicted of serious crimes, and they are non-citizens. They do not have Canadian citizenship. And the Refugee Protection Act, its core, the whole premise of it is that if you commit a serious crime in Canada, you lose your right to be in Canada, because if you are non-citizen, being in Canada it's a privilege. It's not a right. So let's get into exactly, you started here. Let's get exactly into what we're going to go through. So we're going to redefine serious criminality in IRPA as an indictable offense or a hybrid offense that's been prosecuted indictably. What this means, it's fancy terms for a serious crime like murder, sexual assault, armed robbery. This is going to close a loophole that the judiciary has been using to allow people who have been convicted of serious crimes, who are non-citizens, like sexual assault, they've been convicted of that, to appeal their deportation or stay their deportation. We're also going to amend the bill or attempt to amend the bill to bar something called repeat pre-removal risk assessments. There's a process before somebody is deported to make sure that Canada is not deporting them into like a war zone where they're going to die, right?
Right.
So that happens for everybody who's going through a deportation. What happens though is that we'll see somebody who, even people who've been convicted of serious crimes, try to like get another pre-removal risk assessment to delay or stay their deportation. I think it is common sense that if somebody has been, a non-citizen has been convicted of serious crime like sexual assault, like murder, like armed robbery, that they should not have another pre-removal risk assessment unless there's like substantive new evidence to show that they can't be deported. Like, for example, their country started kinetic war, like rare circumstances. And then we're also going to present a bunch of amendments to modernize the acceleration of enforcement orders or deportation orders. So we can kill this screenshot here, Sean. And let's talk about the next thing. In the middle of all of these amendments that we've been proposing, I'm just gonna close the segment by saying this. For listeners and people who write to us who say, well, what are conservatives going to do something? Here's something. This is probably the most substantive package of concrete reforms that have been proposed to the asylum system in a generation or more. So for those who are wanting to see what happened with these amendments, I'm hoping that we get some support from the Bloc Québécois. I know that this is a big issue in Quebec. They have members in their party that understand that this is a problem, particularly in Quebec. So I'm hoping, I structured the amendments hoping to get some of their support, but I also hope the Liberals support this. Like it's so crazy to me. Like if Mark Carney purports to be a quote new government, he has to accept some of these amendments that frankly the Labour Party in the UK is going farther than this, right? So stay tuned. Okay, let's talk about what else happened on the immigration front this week. There were two big stories. One was by Global News. Let's put up. No, we're going to go to a clip of my question on this. So Global
we've
News
got a clip here.
reported. Global News reported that there were, the long and the short of it, over 450 people that are essentially direct ties to Hamas in Canada that the government, one instance that they highlighted, the government brought in as a refugee under the Liberals. At the same time, there was testimony at our committee that said that the border security process for refugees, they've watered it down to this one-touch system where essentially somebody can self-declare. This is what the head of the union said. Somebody could essentially self-declare if they were a terrorist or not. So on one hand, you've got Global News reporting that there are 450 people that have been allowed into Canada that have ties to Hamas. On the other hand, you have the head of the border security union saying that people are now self-declaring whether or not they are terrorists. And then we've had reports before in the last few weeks that the Liberals have lost track of 600 serious criminals in the country that were on deportation orders. And we did an order paper question where the government couldn't they couldn't tell us how many citizenships they gave to non-citizens who had been convicted of serious crimes. So we raised this issue in the House of Commons this week. Have a listen.
Yesterday, a shocking expose by Global News outlined how in 2016 the Liberals allowed a Syrian national named Omar al-Qassib, who is a financier of Hamas, to claim refugee status in Canada. On Tuesday, officials revealed that the Liberals have launched a one-touch program that allows refugee claimants to self-declare whether or not they are terrorists when entering Canada. How many Hamas operatives and other terrorists have the Liberals granted refugee status to in the last 10 years?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary for the Ministry of Citizenship and Immigration.
Mr. Speaker, I would urge colleagues across the way to think twice about putting on the floor of the House of Commons unverified reports from anonymous sources, Mr. Speaker. Security is of paramount importance in this country. That is a sacrosanct principle upheld by successive Conservative and Liberal governments. We maintain that principle from start to finish. As for the comments about the program that was talked about at Immigration Committee, the member knows better.
The honourable member for Calgary Nose Hill.
For those listening at home, that translates to they don't know. Global News also reported that an astonishing 450 people with assorted roles in Hamas now have ties to Canada. Last week, the minister was unable to say how many non-citizen criminals and terrorists the Liberals have granted to in an official request. And now Global News is revealing that this terrorist financier has already passed the citizenship test and is awaiting a final decision. How many other terrorists are the Liberals in the process of granting citizenship to?
So first of all, just like kind of behind the scenes chatter here, the person who answered the question, his name's Peter Fradiskatos. He's the parliamentary secretary to Lena Diab, who's the worst immigration minister in Canadian history, I think. I mean, she takes a cake. I kind of feel bad for Peter because he's not up in question period every day. I don't like the fact that he was like, the member knows better. Like, come on, Peter, you can do better than that with me. Like, don't do the
But
mansplain
that's
thing.
all you can say when
I know, like,
when you can't stand on your record, though, right?
I know, and I like so like kind of a gentle chiding to Peter, like don't mansplain to me in the House of Commons. And like anonymous reports, well, Global News reported it, so there's that, right? You can just see that the Liberals, like the fact that they don't have an answer to this. And usually when a parliamentary secretary gets up to answer a question in the House, the department officials will have briefed them on issues of the day and they'll have prescriptive answers. The fact that they didn't have anything for Peter that day, it underscores the fact that the Liberals, if the system is out of control. And like, this is not hyperbole. You and I talking about this on a podcast. This is real. There's 450 people being reported by Global News, allegedly, that are in the country with ties to Hamas. The government can't tell Parliament how many citizenships they gave to non-citizens who were convicted of serious crimes. They can't answer questions on this one-touch system about self-declaration of, security screening. It goes on and on. So this is why this week we will propose these very substantive reforms. I have, I think, 30 amendments I'll be proposing to the bill. They're all meaty. And I hope, like, my plea to people who might be listening from the Liberal Party is this: there's no poison pills in these amendments. These are amendments that I think the government is going to have to, they're going to have to implement them. In fact,
Yeah, well, that's what I was going to say, is like it's very common sense stuff, right? And I think that's the point as people are looking at these bullet points on the amendments, is nothing that you outlined there should come as shock or concern for everyday Canadians as they look at this. I think the shock and concern is that this is not already a part of the process for people that are trying to come into Canada. And then you couple that with the Liberals' response to case examples of abuse or fraud or concern loopholes within the system, and people don't trust or believe what the Liberals have to say on this, and it's because they broke the system and they don't trust them to fix it. And so that is where Canadians look at these sorts of reforms that you and the Conservatives are proposing and say, yes, like there is no poison pill. There's nothing particularly partisan. It's just yes, let's do this and let's get on to fixing it. Quite frankly, the Liberals are incapable of fixing the mess that they broke. So they should be taking the suggestions from the opposition to say, okay, here are reasonable solutions that will solve the problems that we created.
So just in terms of process, for people who might want to follow this, please click subscribe to this channel. Please click auto download if you're listening to this as a podcast, because we will be moving these amendments at the Standing Committee on Public Safety this week. That's where Bill C2 or C12, I'm sorry, is being reviewed, and that's where these amendments will go through. We will I think next week's pod will probably go through each of the amendments, Sean, or some of them anyways, in terms of what the outcome was, what the debate was. But please, click subscribe to this channel, because we'll be coming to you with, this is going to be one of the biggest debates Canada has had on immigration, with substantive policy reform in some time. So I think it's really important. There's so much more. There's so much more to talk about, but I think we'll call it a day there. Again, I just want to thank you, our entire staff team. It takes a lot to develop policy like this. A shout out to the comm staff in our opposition leader's office as well too. But this is I'm really proud of the work that we've done here. I hope the Liberals support it. And hopefully this affects some change in the country. And if not, the Conservatives look like a government in waiting. You can see that we have an actual plan on how to fix the system. And I think that's important too. So with that, working hard for you. Have a great day.
Thanks for listening. If you want even more political news, subscribe at michellerempelgarner.substack.com. And if you like what you hear, be sure to share this podcast.